Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez with you here on the first show of the month of March here. And basketball's cranking up. We got a lot of other stuff going on. Baseball playing all kinds of extra innings against Ball State. You know, last night. We're recording this on Thursday morning, March the 7th. But man, what a busy time it is, and it's only going to get busier because we're going to have some more basketball in the month of March. How you doing, Eric Lopez? I know you've been running back and forth between softball and baseball. What time did you and Murph get done last night?
Oh, I left Murph hanging. I left early. I left around the 10th inning of that game. Are you kidding? He warned me that game was going to be a marathon. I'm like, hey, I can't stay on this beat. That's why I do softball. See, the beauty of softball is even if we go long, it's still quick. Baseball, not so much. So he's probably still recovering from that 13-inning game. Plus, he had football availability, all that stuff.
Right.
So good luck with all that.
Yeah. Murph is going to join us a little bit later to talk about football and maybe a little bit of baseball if he has some time. But we have a lot to talk about men's basketball too, in the wake of one of the biggest wins maybe in school history. Remember to follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. We are SB Nation's home for your UCF Knights. You can also follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret and Facebook at facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. Follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, Brian is at Spokes_Murphy. Don't forget to follow Luke Saris at Luke Saris SBN. We've also got a number of other people that you can follow as well for all the latest. Zach Goodall, Zach_Goodall. Don't forget Jeremy Brenner at Jeremy Brenner. UCF Knights Nation as well. Chris Carter, we got the whole crew is out here and ready for you as we move right along. All right. And Chaz Short, can't forget about Chaz as well at CFB*. All right, I want to talk about, we're going to start by talking about men's basketball. What can we say about UCF men's basketball last weekend as they go into Houston and do what nobody really expected them to do, which was beat the Houston Cougars, the number 6 ranked Houston Cougars in Houston. It's funny. I was at the women's basketball game, and I asked one of the guys who I sit next to at the table. I said, "What do you think?" Because the women were playing first, and then the men were playing at 4. And the women were at home. We were going to get home in time to see the men's game. College game day was down at Houston. Big coming out party for Houston basketball, and UCF goes and spoils it. And I asked this guy, I said, "What do you think of tonight? What do you think of the game later today?" He's like, "We got no chance. They're just way too good." And I was like, all right. I mean, I don't know. I think that we could have a shot if they don't play well, but there's a possibility. I thought that there was a possibility there. Well, that second half, man, that was something. UCF shot 50% in that second half, 13 of 26. They held Houston to 10 for 31. And down the stretch, right when it looked like Houston was about to kind of take over and maybe put it away, they were up 2, Houston was, with 1:57 to go. And then what happens? Aubrey Dawkins hits a 3. Galen Robinson comes back, misses a 3 for Houston. Dawkins gets the rebound. And then he goes, and then Corey Davis commits a foul. It was his first foul of the game, and what a time to do it, because Dawkins hits those 2 free throws with 1:18 to go, and then suddenly UCF is up 3. Then a turnover by Giroux. UCF gets the ball back. Colin Smith makes 1 out of 2 free throws, and UCF is suddenly up 4 in the final with 30 seconds to go, and they hit their free throws, and then that was that. It was kind of an anticlimactic finish to a really climactic performance by UCF, but they did it by doing the little things down the stretch that we've been saying that we've been worried about. They hit their free throws, they played great defense down the stretch, and they got the job done, man. So let's talk about this from the big perspective. Like, how big of a win was this, not just for this team this year, but for the program in general?
I think it's the biggest regular season win in program history. I think it's a win
bigger than the Florida game.
Yes, because this win's going to get you into the tournament. The Florida game did not. And, I mean, this was a game that was also on a day where College Game Day was there. It's on ESPN. Jay Billis is there courtside. You know, he actually spent a 4-minute segment there where he's analyzing the game from the UCF bench. I mean, talk about exposure.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right behind his old college teammate, Johnny Dawkins, right?
Correct, which was cool. I mean, that's really cool. And it was the most watched UCF basketball game in cable television in UCF basketball history. It's just, that's the biggest win in the regular season. Significant, just significant. Gets them into the top 25 polls, and it gets their ticket in the NCAA tournament. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2005, and it's just remarkable performance. Colin Smith, his best game as a Knight, was dominant inside, and Taco has continued his torrid dominance inside to where I think he's playing himself into a first-team all-conference performer. Just a huge win, you know, because it answered all the critics' questions. Oh, like, well, can they win on the road? Oh, check. Can they beat a quality team? Check. Can they beat a ranked team? Check. I mean, they checked all the boxes, and it was a big, big win. And just proud for those guys. They know they've worked hard, and it's a huge win. And now it's a question of you're playing for seeding here, and you got Cincinnati and you got Temple, and you got the conference tournament, and you just try to build that momentum now from that Houston game on. But yeah, it's the biggest win in basketball regular season, and I know some people will cringe at this, but I think it's the biggest win that any UCF team has had in the last few years.
Wow. I mean, that's saying something, because even bigger than that Illinois game at home to get to the NIT Final Four. I mean, we were there for that one, and what a celebration that was. But, in terms of the big picture, the overwhelming consensus right now seems to be that this win basically sealed up an NCAA tournament. I'm never willing to go that far about that, because it just, I've seen stranger things happen. But just to give you an idea, so the win puts UCF at 28th in the net rankings. On Bracket Matrix, which you guys know is my favorite thing to look at, UCF is now listed as an NCAA tournament team in all 127 bracketologist rankings that they aggregate. Average seed is a 9.09. They're squarely a 9 seed alongside Oklahoma, Mississippi, and VCU, who they project to be the A10 champion. But what I was really impressed with this game was down the stretch. What's been the MO the last 4 years down the stretch? It's BJ Taylor, right? BJ did not have a good game. He was 1 of 6 from the field. Yes, he was 8 of 8 at the line, 11 points, but it really wasn't his best game, and UCF found a way to win anyway, thanks to Aubrey Dawkins. And we got to hand it to Terrell Allen and Dayon Griffin, but especially Dayon Griffin, who hit 3 of 4 clutch free throws. He's had his struggles at the line this year, but he hit some key free throws down the stretch. You mentioned Colin Smith, who was 8 of 15 from the field, 21 points and 7 rebounds. Let me ask you this then. Is there now's the part where we start looking ahead. 2 games left in the regular season. Senior night Thursday, tonight, if you're listening to this, we're recording this on Thursday morning, 7 p.m. against number 19 Cincinnati.
First ever top 25 matchup in the building after history. Right,
because UCF is now ranked top 25 in the AP. They're at number 25. Cincinnati's 20 in the AP, 19th in the coaches. It's on ESPN2. So good exposure there. Last game of the regular season is going to be at Temple on Saturday at 4, also on ESPN2 or ESPN News. We don't know just yet. But my question is there a scenario that you see right now that could push UCF back to the outside looking in? Because I'm reading all the hype. UCF's in now. They got the big win that they needed, but I you know me, I'm paranoid. I get worried. So, like, what would be it? Like losing the last 3 games in a row? I mean, God forbid.
Losing out. I mean, losing out basically. Losing out is when you would sweat, and I even believe that would be the scenario where it includes an opening round conference tournament loss. I think is where you start to sweat it out. But I think, to be honest, in that scenario, I think they would drop into the playing game in the NCAA tournament. I think the Houston win is such a on the road. A lot of the bubble teams aren't going to have that in their resume.
Right. That's what made UCF a bubble team, was they didn't have a win like that.
Correct.
Right.
They're in the top 4 in a good league in the American Conference. Obviously, I think if they to me, you just win one of these next 3 games, and I'm talking, Cincinnati, Temple, and then that opening round conference, or win the conference tournament game and get to the semis, you're fine. I don't even think these 2 games are pivotal. It's just really more icing on the cake, and for seeding purposes, they can move up. But look, I mean, people like John Rothstein and Andy Katz, a lot of media people like this team. And I think the AP voters showed that, right? They voted him in the top 25. That tells you how impressed they were with that performance. And so, no, I think they're in. I mean, I felt pretty good going into the Houston game. They had a pretty good shot to get in, and I think they're definitely in. Obviously, you would want to win one of your next 3 games that and not even worry about it. I think the worst case scenario is you lose out and you may sweat it out and you may end up in the playing game. But I don't think that will happen. I think they will win one of these next 3 games, and I think they will be in the field of 68 for the first time since 2005, and for the first time probably in the history of the program as an at-large, unless they win the conference tournament.
Well, this game against Cincinnati starts to look really interesting, because Cincinnati, again, they have them right around like a 6-7 seed, somewhere around there, at least as of right now. Some places have the Bearcats as high as a 5. But I think that the real game that we're gonna have to keep a very close eye on is that Temple game. The Cincinnati game, that can go one way or the other. I think you never know when you play against that team.
Yeah, and by the way, let me just tell people now: if you're looking for offense, don't, because
nope.
I laughed the last time these 2 teams played. Everybody's complaining about the offensive struggles. I'm like, did you not watch these 2 teams play before? This is what they're. This is.
Tell me if this is an accurate analogy. This is going to be a tables, ladders, and chairs match.
Yeah. I mean, these 2 teams, when UCF beat Cincinnati at home that year where they made the NIT run, it was like a 53-49 game. I mean, that's what these 2 teams are going to play. They're going to play a game in the 50s. Probably the first team to the high 50s, maybe even, if we're lucky, wins this game. So I don't want to hear the Twitter complaints about, the offense struggles there, All right, because
you should know by now that Mick Cronin that Cronin's cronies like to really slow things down and turn it into a rock fight.
What it reminds me of is back in the old NBA days in the late 90s, 2000s, Heat-Knicks games. Remember those games in the playoffs? Oh, yeah. It was like 75, 72, and it was just – that's what UCF Cincinnati is, and that's what I expect to see there. So please don't stop complaining about the offense, because you're not. Both these teams play great defense. The Temple game, that's a huge game for Temple. They need that game to have a shot to get into the NCAA tournament, make this a 4-bid league for the league. So they're going to be ready for that game. That's going to be a buzzsaw for UCF that they're going to run into. They're going to have to withstand probably an early run from Temple there. Remember, that's going to be Coach Dunphy's last home game as the head coach of Temple. He's retiring. So there's going to be a lot of emotion in Philadelphia that UCF's going to have to withstand in that game. So this will not be 2 easy games from that perspective. And if UCF can get a split, I would take it right now and run it to the bank.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because, and by the way, Fran Dunphy, who's been at Temple now for 14 years, it took over for John Chaney, the legendary John Chaney, who they named the court after. I mean, it's, pour out a little bit for Coach Dunphy there, playing in his coaching his final NCAA or his final home game at Temple. Yeah, they're going to be ready. They're going to be ready to go for that, because a lot of projections right now have Temple kind of just barely on the outside looking in. A bunch of places have them first 4 out. Some places have them, around 11, 12. We don't know. I think Lenardi has them as a 12. SB Nation has them as a 12. We just don't know. At this point. So this is a absolutely critical game for Temple, and we need to keep a very close eye on that game going forward. Not that we're saying look ahead, but in the preview for this weekend, that's the big that's going to be a big test before you head out to Memphis for that conference tournament. Again, at Memphis, I don't know, but again next weekend. So massive games coming up. That will very quickly put this victory at Houston in the rearview mirror. So again, Thursday is 7 against Cincinnati. Games on ESPN2. Do we know who's calling that game, by the way?
I don't have it top of me. You can check it out in the game.
Hang on, let me check it out. In the game notes, because I know the typical our usual guys are going to be there for UCF with Taylor Young and Mark. Here, Mike Corey and John Thompson is going to be there. So
John Thompson the third, they're both. I know John Thompson the third is going to be involved in the conference tournament in Memphis. He's going to be calling games in the conference tournament with Adam Amin, among others. So that'll be in Memphis. But we'll look ahead to that next week.
Right. So again, 25 versus 20 in the AP, big top 25 matchup in the
historic
American
match. Hopefully, we get a great environment.
They're trying to sell out the arena too. I mean, do you think they'll get that?
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I was skeptical back. Remember, you and I were skeptical since the NIT quarterfinal game. Oh, they're not going to sell this out in 24, 48 hours. And then we walked into the building right after a softball game against Florida State. We walked in and we were like, our jaws dropped. I don't know if they get to that point, but I do think should be the largest crowd of the year. How about that?
I know that right now UCF at 22-6, 12-4, they've clinched what's the answer? Clinched a berth in the tournament for the American Athletic Conference. Have they clinched a bye? I think they may have clinched a bye.
Yeah, top 4 get a bye.
Yeah, top 4 get a bye. So right now that's Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and Temple. Oh, they have clinched the bye. Okay, so that win over Houston did clinch the bye. Yep. So no matter, even if UCF loses out, they will not play in that first round, which is critical, isn't it?
Yeah, because it avoids a bad loss in theory. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you would. Now it's a question of you want to try to get the highest seed possible, and I do agree with Murph. I've talked to Murph about this, and he's talked about it in the podcast. You probably want to avoid playing Memphis in the quarterfinal.
Oh yeah,
at their place. That's the danger zone right there.
Yeah. So right now Memphis is on the outside looking in. They would be 5th, right behind Temple. So again, another reason why a lot's riding on this game for Temple, so that they can preserve that bye and possibly bump Memphis down to that first day of the tournament at home. So you got to turn right around after getting into a rock fight with Cincinnati at home, and you got to get ready for Temple in that game. So that's going to be something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on as UCF winds down the last 2 games of the regular season against 2 really good opponents. All right, baseball. Let's flip over here to Greg Lovelady's guys, who are 9-3 on the year. Obviously, they played every game but 1 at home. But the last night against Ball State, first of all, the Knights did get 2 out of 3 against Jacksonville over the weekend, including a 6-4 comeback victory on Sunday. But this Ball State game that happened on Wednesday night was really something.
Brutal.
You were there for much of it. Unfortunately, Murph is still locked up doing media availability, but he was there for the entire night. It was freezing cold last night. It was 41 degrees. UCF gets to win 9-8 in 13 innings. Just to give you an idea of how this game went down. So Ball State takes a 4-0 lead into the bottom of the 7th, and UCF gets 4 runs to tie it. They get thrown out at home trying to score the winning run in the bottom of the 9th. All right, so we go 10-11 In the 12th, Ball State scores 2 in the top. The Knights answer with 2 in the bottom. Ball State scores another 2 in the top of the 13th. So they're up 8-6 again, and then UCF manages to push 3 across on a game-winning RBI single officially by Castellano, and they managed to win the game. Pedro Castellano, the left fielder, who came in who was actually the third left fielder of the game for UCF after Tyler Osick went 0 for 4 at the plate. But 3 for 5 for Ray Alejo, who, if I'm not mistaken, did score the winning run. No, it was McCabe who scored. I'm sorry. But, somehow the Knights get the job done against this crazy Ball State team in this wild game. Do we learn anything from that? Or is it just one of those, midweek non-conference games where just everything kind of more or less, it doesn't go wrong, but you just got to fight your way through?
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't take too much of it. I give Murph credit. Murph called this game. He called this right before the game. This was going to be like the Bradley game from last year. That was just going to be all over the place, and that's what this game was. The weather was brutal. It was like 40-some degree weather. By the time I got there, not a lot of people stayed.
Yeah.
Murph did. For whatever reason, he decided to stay because he's loyal, and he loves punishment.
He loves punishment.
But he just I sat with him. I'm like, why do you do this to yourself? Like, what are you doing? You were done with
yeah. He called it last night on Twitter, man. He told me last night, he's like, I'm surprised that I haven't been banned by Twitter yet for all the volume from this one particular moment. But yeah, we've got.
But yeah, it was great. It's just funny because I came over from softball and I got there in the 7th inning. Even the security guy was shocked, like, why are you coming here?
Right. What are you doing?
I want to. Yeah, but I'll say this: it avoids a bad loss. I mean, that's the big takeaway. You avoid a bad loss in the resume after the win against Florida. They got some things to clean up a little bit, and we'll see what they do against Penn State. I think they got some questions in the bullpen a little bit, but they found a way to win, and that's a good pot. That's always that's always better than the alternative. So that's what I would say. But I give Murph credit. He called that. He said it was going to be a marathon game, and it was just going to be one of those games that it's just going to be all over the place. And I think even Greg Lovelady was kind of like, there's not much to say about it. So you just move on. And now they got Penn State at home, and they got to see if they refocus. You get Chris Williams back, who looked great on Saturday night. I saw him actually on Saturday night after softball. They was dominant. And that's huge for them to get their big weapon back in that rotation there in Williams.
Both teams, by the way, in that game last night used 8 pitchers each. I mean, that gives you – and really the bummer for UCF was Tom Cheshirek, who finally got cleared to come in and or got cleared to pitch. And so he goes last night, and he did not have a good outing. He threw only 1/3, walked 3, gave up a run. And a quick hook from Greg Lovelady after 24 pitches gave way to Jalen Whitehead, who actually did a pretty good job in 3 2/3, holding Ball State to 1 run on 4 hits. Louis Ferrer, by the way, who gave up 2 runs in the top of the 13th, managed to get the win, throwing the last two innings. So, make of that what you will. So UCF baseball next. They got a 3-game set with Penn State coming up. Friday at 6, Saturday at 6, Sunday at 1. That'll be on UCF Knights TV. Chance against a Big Ten opponent. And then Yale midweek, Tuesday and Wednesday. Both of those games are at 6 p.m. As well. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk to I'm going to talk to Murph about football, but I know that you have to roll real quick, Elo. We'll be back with you in actually a little bit to talk some women's basketball.
As riveted as I am about spring football, as riveted as I am, I will.
I know
I'll be glad to step aside for that one.
All right, so we're gonna tag you out, and we're gonna bring Murph here in a hot second to talk about the beginning of spring football and what, if anything, we can learn from that. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
All right, joining me now to talk a little spring football is the sleep-deprived Brian Murphy after that 13-inning marathon last night at UCF Baseball. He'll be he's actually just got done with media availability at football on Thursday afternoon, and will be sticking around on campus to cover the basketball game Thursday night, also known as tonight, against Cincinnati. Seriously, where's your tent? Where in the Arboretum are you hiding your tent or tiny home or whatever?
I really do need to reserve a couch somewhere on campus and just crash there, at least for the next couple of weeks as the spring equinox rolls on.
I know this is brutal, man. So that 13-inning ball game last night was just ridiculous. But I won't force you to recount that, lest you start having convulsions of some kind. But I want to talk a little football with you because spring practice is underway, and you know how I feel about spring practice. It's much ado about nothing, but there are a couple storylines heading in there. Obviously, Brandon Wimbush and Daryl Mack at the quarterback position. We're going to get our first look at Dylan Gabriel. We're going to see what this roster kind of looks like with some of the new weapons at those guys' disposals. With some of the guys who moved on, like Dredrick Snelson and whatnot, but. For you, heading into this spring stretch, what do you think are the real storylines that fans need to be paying attention to, but maybe aren't?
Well, I think the thing that everyone wants to know is how does this team sort of use a loss, something that this program hasn't experienced in 2 seasons. Basically, how do they use a loss to motivate them for the following year? So I think most of my questions have been Fiesta Bowl tinged. And to a man, really, we've talked to coaches and players on both the offensive and defensive sides. They are not shying away from that game. They've not put it out of their minds. They're not moving past it or forgetting about it. They're using it. They will tell you openly that they are disappointed with the way that game against LSU turned out. They're using it as motivation. They don't like the way they played, and they're kind of trying to have that serve as a springboard for this spring and into the fall. They are not trying to, forget about the Fiesta Bowl.
What do the coaches say that they want to get done in this period? I mean, it's one thing. Last year you're starting with a new coaching staff. There's always an adjustment period. There's some degree of offensive and defensive installation of terminology and personnel groupings and all that kind of stuff that you have to do. What are they trying to get? What are the coaches trying to get done this spring?
Just familiarity, getting guys used to concepts, getting used to roles, seeing where guys fit. I mean, they'll say no one has a job lockdown. That's what Heupel said on Monday, and I think Richie Grant echoed that today. Certainly you can quibble with that because certainly there are guys who are starting, but the point of the concept is that everyone out here is competing for a role. And what is your role? A lot of these guys we don't know yet. Certainly on the defensive line, past Brendan Hayes, it's a lot of new guys. They lost Joey Connors, Tristan Hill, AJ Wooten, Titus Davis, so that defensive line is new. But they lost Pat Jasinski at linebacker. On offensive line, there's a couple new pieces they got replaced there. You mentioned Dredrick Snelson. He's gone. So you try to fit new guys in, get them familiar, and make sure the guys who were here last year sort of take on more of a leadership role, which we're seeing more out of from guys like Richie Grant, the redshirt junior safety, Nate Evans, who's now probably going to be middle linebacker in place of Pat Jasinski, guys like that. And you just want to get them on the field and keep them fit. And if anybody's out here trying to find real news, like who's winning the quarterback battle, you're going to have to wait a good 6 months for that.
Yeah, I was going to say the quarterback thing because I'm getting fans yelling at me on Twitter saying, well, how many quarterbacks is Josh Heupel saying that he has? He said he only had 4, but I see 5. Like what's going on? And I'm telling people it is way too freaking early to be parsing that kind of stuff. But insofar as there is any news on that front, what news is there on the quarterback front?
Nope.
It's Brandon Wimbush wears number 3. That's about it.
Yeah, they all look great. Everyone is fantastic.
Everyone's healthy, ready to compete. It's
Right.
going to be tough competition out there because we're very talented at that position.
It was semi-cute watching Mac and Wimbush watch Dylan Gabriel's first meeting with the press on Monday. So Gabriel comes in, true freshman quarterback from Hawaii. And after Mac and Wimbush have spoke to reporters, Gabriel steps in for his first go-around in front of the cameras. And Wimbush and Mac are like watching him from behind the cameras. It was sort of cute as they sort of watch over him. And then when he was done, they applauded him. And so that's kind of cute. But there's really no one's going to talk to you about depth. No one was going to say anything about depth chart or who's starting where. I think we asked Randy Shannon that today. And Randy, not one to go really long-winded on things. It's just like, no, there's no jobs, being handed out here. We're all competing, and there are guys who will be on this team who are not even here yet. They will enroll as freshmen before the new semester starts in the fall. So there are pieces on this team that aren't even here yet. So anybody out there trying to search for depth chart nuggets or who's winning the quarterback battles or any battles across the field, you are way too early for that. This is just a check-in with UCF football.
This isn't going to stop me from asking another question about quarterbacks.
Great.
All right, so Mackenzie Milton earlier this week went through the car wash on local radio, kind of updating everybody on his condition and some of the stuff that he's been doing and to try and recover from his leg injury. He was at practice. He kind of hinted a little bit about, maybe spending this year up in the coaching booth, kind of getting a new perspective. What is going to be his role, more or less, with this team? Or are we able to even glean that to some extent?
Well, I'm not even sure they're going to let him up in the coach's booth. I think that's still something that I think he wants to do, but I don't know if they will actually let him do that. For now, because we don't have a game to go off of, he's on the practice field in his, in the golf cart, or maybe standing around a couple of times and just checking guys out, giving tips where he can, sort of being the player coach that he sort of was at the end of last season. And that's kind of going to be his role no matter where he is actually stationed at on game day. That's going to be his role on game day this season. He will not play. Everyone knows he will not play this year. It's going to be interesting to see if what kind of feedback. Not everyone's gonna say he's gonna be great as a coach or giving them feedback, but I wonder if there will be certain times after games where they will point to something maybe McKenzie saw in film study that gave them an edge, that gave them a look, that provided them an opening to a play that broke a game open. Maybe that happens. That would be interesting. But otherwise, it's nice to have him around. Heupel said it's also good for him to be here as well, which I agree with. I mean, it's just good for him to be around football,
right,
and be with this team. So, but yeah, it's a Mackenzie Milton player coach, and I think both parties, UCF and Milton, are satisfied with that for this year.
All right. So, again, Knight fans, please don't ask granular questions about spring football because not even the coaches would answer. It's not worth it. They're just not going to go there.
I think they said today, like Brendan Hayes, who is your starting defensive end this year. Last spring, when Shane Burnham came in, like Brendan Hayes, I think was third on the depth chart. Like,
right.
And it's just so early. Just don't even worry about that stuff. We got guys on the team who aren't even on the team yet. Again, please understand what spring ball is. It is purely a way to check in and say hello and what's up, how everything's been going for the last couple of months. Then we have a spring game, which is whatever. It's for revenue.
It's a practice held in the stadium, is what
Correct.
it is.
It's a practice. We talk about practice for a month, and then we leave.
It's not a dress rehearsal.
No, we leave for 5 months. We don't learn much of anything. As long as guys don't get hurt, that's all that matters.
Yep. Yeah. See, that's the thing that I always get scared of is, because every year you always hear about it, not somebody on UCF, but some key player for some key school suffers some sort of season-ending injury in spring football, like, made a bad cut and blew a knee out, God forbid, or something. It's like, please, dear God, don't let that happen here. So
they won't.
Probably the people who have the most the most nerves heading into this is the athletic training staff, because they're just trying to keep everybody healthy out there. So, all right, you're heading to basketball a little bit later here on Thursday night.
I'm heading to baseball by the time you get this.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, you're going to have you got baseball availability, and then the basketball game tonight. Lopez and I talked about the basketball game just real quick. I want to get your take on it because it's. I'm actually more nervous about the Temple game up there than kind of this game. I mean, this game is going to be a rock fight, but it's two ranked teams. We're more or less in the eyes of the national media, basically neck and neck with Cincinnati. It's like what, six and a half dozen or another, but.
UCF is a 2.5 point home favorite, which basically tells you it'd be a push on neutral court. On neutral court, these guys are the same team,
right? And Cincinnati, I mean, we know what we're going to get from them. Eric made the point, and I tend to agree with him that your first team to 50 wins. We are going to see senior night though tonight, and that's going to be fun. What's the big story with senior night? Because Taco Fall's mom is in town. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. His mother. Who's been living, in his hometown in Senegal.
Yeah, Dakar, Senegal. Is that right?
Yeah, Dakar. Yeah, and with his younger brother, I think his name is Fallow. They've been living in Senegal ever since Taco left to come to the United States 7 years ago as a 16-year-old. So they have not seen each other since then. That is until Sunday, this past Sunday, the day after the Houston win. UCF returned home that night, and then the next morning. The Taco Fall, his mother Marianne, and his brother Fallow saw each other for the first time in 7 years.
Wow!
And tonight, Thursday's game will be the first time that Marianne has ever seen Taco play basketball live. Her entire, her library of Taco Fall basketball memories right now, at least in college, is YouTube clips. She follows the UCF Knights YouTube account and see clips of the games he plays, but she has never seen him. She has never seen him play live. She will be there tonight for senior night, along with his younger brother, who I believe is 13 years old. It's a pretty cool story. She got a visa just recently to come over, and it's gonna be very emotional. Everybody's very excited. I asked Taco yesterday, what kind of fan do you think she's gonna be like? Like, what's her emotions gonna be like? And Taco said, they better not be fouling me a lot because she'll come on the court. And so that'd be fantastic. That would be great.
Now, he's been playing so well the last couple weeks, I think particularly on the defensive end.
He's the reigning conference player of the week.
Yeah. I mean, what do you sense is going to be how he comes out, not just tonight, but I think the rest of the night, because this is kind of like walking on the moon for him. I mean, he's seeing his family for the first time in, like you said, 7 years. That's such a long time to be away from your people, and that can go. We've seen this before, right? I mean, that can go one of two ways. You can either be really nervous, and kind of just be out of sorts, or you can really come out like crazy. Did you get the sense from talking to Taco, like how it's going to work for him with this game, and how he's going to be able to handle this emotional moment?
I get the sense that Taco is not an extremely emotional person, and so I don't know how that maybe would work. I don't want to do any armchair sports psychology here, but
come on, let's speculate a little bit.
I know, right? I hate that. I really do. I hate it. But if we're gonna guess, I would assume that he doesn't get sort of swallowed up by the environment and by the moment and by what this all means. I'm sure he'll be nervous early on because this is kind of what senior night is. Senior night's about you, the senior, and so you get that spotlight on you, and especially with his family there's going to be a lot of butterflies and just some different emotions. But I think once the game begins, Taco's pretty good at focusing in on just the game itself. I don't think it'll have a huge impact on his on-court play, but maybe interesting to see how he acts or how he emotes himself beforehand and after the game, especially if they win.
Yeah, not just him, but also BJ Taylor is going to be playing his final home game as a UCF Knight, and that's going to be a really emotional moment for him too. Local kid and all the stuff that BJ has done for UCF over the years.
One of the greatest players in program history.
I feel like it's almost a footnote. It seems like which is kind of weird, but yeah, it's going to be an emotional night tonight. who knows how the result of the game goes, but it's going to be really something. You're going to be live tweeting that thing, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll be there. I will say this. If UCF wins this game, I've never said UCF is in the tournament after the Houston game. I never said that. I said it puts them in a good position. They could secure it. If they win tonight, they will definitely be in the tournament.
It's pretty much a lock.
It's a lock. It's a lead pipe double cinch. If they lose tonight and then win on Saturday, same thing. They're in. They're totally in if they win on Saturdays, even if they lose tonight. And even if they lose these next two, tonight and at Temple, I think if they win their first game in the conference tournament, that also would get them in. It would keep them off the bubble, probably away from Dayton as well. So really for UCF, if you just want to make it in, survive all the bid stealers throughout conference week, you're looking to win one of your last at least 3 games. That's all you need. You just need to win 1 of 3, and that probably is going to lock you in.
1 out of 3. That's all I need. All right, Brian Murphy, thank you so much for joining us from campus. Have fun talking baseball, and then we'll probably see you. Hopefully you won't get any loose balls batted your way like you have been seemingly once a game at this point. You know.
That's why I sit up top. I sit at the top of the concourse now.
Oh, now you sit at the top of the. Oh, come on! They don't put you. You're staying away from the sidelines. Oh man!
The baseline view is so overrated. It's the worst view on the court. At least when you sit up top, you get a good depth perception of what's happening.
All right. Well,
yes.
we won't see you then, which makes me sad because I'm always looking for you with your hat. All right, Brian Murphy, thanks again for joining us. Stick around; we'll be right back. Lopez is going to join us back here in a little bit, and we're going to talk with Aline Reis, the former UCF women's soccer star, who's now in the Brazilian national team. We're going to talk a bunch of other stuff right here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Stick around; back after this. All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, blackandgoldbanneret.com, UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. Murph is off to do some, interviewing of people, so it's me and Lopez back here with you for the second half of the show. And we got a lot going on here because, like I said, we're in the spring equinox, and it's not just UCF stuff that's going on, but a lot of former UCF athletes are handling some business. And Eric, you were lucky enough to talk with one of them who was getting some business done right here in the state of Florida, Aline Reis, the former goalkeeper for UCF, who's now part of the Brazilian women's national team. They were in Tampa for the She Believes Cup against the United States, and that gave you the opportunity to catch up with Aline as she's back here in the States.
Yeah, it was great to catch up with her, and obviously coming into the States, of course, starting on that match on the Tuesday night on Fox Sports 1. And I had a chance to talk to her right before that match about a lot of different things, about how the journey of becoming the goalie for the Brazilian national team. This is a big year for Aline Reis, with the Women's World Cup just around the corner this summer, trying to make it there and become the second UCF player ever, joining Michelle Akers, to play in a World Cup after she made her debut with the Brazilian national team in the Olympics in Rio 2 years ago. We talked about all that and how that journey almost didn't happen because she didn't actually believe in going out to be in the Brazilian national team until a little later than expected. Here's my exclusive interview with Aline Reis on the Black and Gold Banneret. All right, joining us now, one of the legendary greatest goalies of all time in UCF soccer history, played at UCF from 2008 to 2011, led him to the Elite Eight in 2011, Conference USA Championship. She was an All-American, and of course now playing overseas, playing for the Brazilian national team. She appeared in the Summer Olympics 2 years ago in Rio and is playing now professionally over in Europe over there in the Spanish League. I speak of Aline Reis. Join us now here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. How you doing?
Hello, Eric. It's so good to be here and talking to you and talking to the Knight Nation. And it's very good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell the other Knight fans, what have you been up to as far as professionally? Because you're playing overseas professionally in the Spanish League. That's got to be not a bad place to be played. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I made the decision to go over to Spain because the league has been growing a lot. It still has long ways to go, but I think in 2-3 years we're going to be talking about one of the best leagues in the world for women's soccer. So this year, especially because it's a big year for me. It's a big year for women's soccer. It's the World Cup, the 2019 World Cup. So I thought that the most important thing was for me to play in a competitive league that would go, all year long and would get me prepared for the World Cup. So that's why I decided to go over to Spain, and I love my decision. I haven't regretted because, like I said, it is competitive. I play for a team. It's called UDG Tenerife. So basically, I live on an island. That's pretty incredible too. I have a very good quality of life, and I think when you're an athlete and you're training so hard, and football, soccer is such a big part of your career, you need to find downtime, and you need to find time to relax and take care of yourself. And luckily, I'm in the right place to do that.
And, of course, you're also part of the Brazilian national team. So how do you balance that out, playing for your your club team, but you're also playing for your country? That's always the uniqueness, right? In soccer, you have to balance both of them out, especially this year, as you mentioned, a critical year with the Women's World Cup taking place this summer in France. So how do you balance that schedule?
So luckily, our schedule allows that because there are FIFA dates where I do not have games with my club team. The league sort of stops on those not weekends, but like let's say 10-day period, and I'm allowed to go with the national team. So that has worked out pretty well. I mean, for us as athletes, sometimes it's a little bit challenging because you're traveling so much, and basically it's hard to get a week off, during the year, because when you're not with your team, with your club team, you are with the national team. But that's how it is. I mean, I'm not the only one doing that. I mean, all over the world, all the international players that play for clubs and then serve their national team, they're doing the same thing. So the good thing, like I said, the league is on board, and on FIFA dates, we don't have games, so I end up not missing anything with my club.
You and what people don't realize is you didn't play right after you finished your career at UCF. You went into coaching right away. You actually joined Coach Cromwell at UCLA as a goalkeeper coach from 2013 to 2016. You were a part of that national championship that Coach Cromwell and UCLA won in 2013. But you then decided to come back and play. Take me through that decision-making of, hey, I want to try out again and try to play, because I know that was part of the motivation was the fact that the Summer Olympics were in Rio in Brazil, and with Brazil hosting, that was, I know, something that intrigued you. And I know Coach Cromwell and I have talked for years. She always felt you should have been on the Brazilian national team even when you were playing at UCF.
Yeah, this has been a crazy ride because, I mean, like you said, I graduated from UCF, and then I actually played in Finland for like a couple of months, and that was just, to get out a little bit and, have a new experience. But back then, that was 2011. I mean, the women's soccer, like the pro world of women's soccer, wasn't what it is today, So, like I said, it's a sport that has been growing a lot for us, and looking at the opportunities, I wanted to be in America. I didn't want to go overseas back in 2011. And the pro league in the United States, there wasn't one. So when I graduated, there wasn't the draft. There wasn't anything like that because pro soccer in America didn't exist in 2011. So Amanda offered me, before I went over to UCLA with her, she offered me a position as a director of operations at UCF. So that allowed me to stay involved with the team. That allowed me to do my master's at UCF, and it was an amazing opportunity. And I can't even begin to tell you how thankful I am to the UCF women's soccer staff. I mean, it has been, I think my years at UCF they were some of the most memorable years, some of the most some of the years that I grew the most, and that's thankful to the people that were around me. And Amanda is a big part of my life. Donna Fisher, Big D, the goalkeeper coach, is a big part of my life. Kobe Hale, who saw me in Brazil and brought me here, it all started thanks to him. So, I mean, those people, I was so thankful to all of them that, it just felt right to be at UCF and continue my studies and be surrounded by those people. But then again, like you said, Amanda went over to UCLA and offered me the position to coach her keepers. And I mean, at that time, it was like the right thing to do. And I was so excited. And I don't regret for a minute because, I mean, I saw the game. I started seeing the game in a whole different way, and those years taught me so much as well. And we were lucky to, not lucky, but I mean, we won a national championship, and that was amazing. That was an incredible moment as well. But then the 2015 World Cup came around, and I remember like we were at a summer camp at UCLA, and we had this room full of kids, full of girls watching Brazil play against Australia. And I just remember watching that game and having a funny feeling. Like, I'm supporting my national team. I know most of those girls. I've played with most of those girls in the past. And I want them to win so bad. But at the same time, I have this feeling that, man, I could have been there, look, like I could have been on the field. I could have been with the team. And then that was the turning point. That got me thinking so hard. And then I brought this crazy dream to Amanda, and I brought this crazy dream to the people that I was close with. And they were all like, what took you so long? What took you so long to realize that you should be playing? You should be on the field, like you have your whole life to coach afterwards. And, your playing career, like you only have so many years. So that was the point that I said, you know what, like I have 9 months. By the time I made the decision, to start training again and, and made the decision that I was going to do everything possible so I could make the real Olympics, the 2016 Olympics. I had about 9 months and to do it all, so I had to sit down and put a plan together because, I mean, things just don't happen like that, so it's the training, and then it's making sure that I go to the right team that put me in front of the Brazilian coaches. It's reaching out to them and making sure that they're watching me, so I made sure to do like all the little things that would give me a chance to be in the Olympics. And luckily, like, it turned out very well, and I was able to make the team, and I played a game. That was my first cap with the full team, the full Brazilian national team, and that was in Brazil in front of like 43,000 people. And in an Olympic game, so that was amazing.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's a pretty good journey there. Yeah, you started against South Africa, played all 90 minutes. What was that like? Well, take me through that as you're on the field getting ready on the pitch there, and you're wearing the Brazilian jersey, you're getting the national anthem, you're getting ready to play against South Africa here in the Olympics, here in your home country.
Well, stepping on the field and seeing all of those people, especially like most of them Brazilians, and that was special. That was a moment I'll never forget. But I mean, it lasted for about like 30 seconds, just looking at everyone and being like, whoa, like I'm here, I'm doing this. But then like it's for me, like it's just like you need to take it as it's just another game. It's a soccer game. I need to be on the field. I need to get my head on the game, not think about what all of this means, because I need to be thinking about the soccer ball right now. And I think that's what I did. I mean, during the game, I wasn't really putting much thought into what that game meant to me. I was just focused and making sure I I did well and I could give my best on the field. And then afterwards, that's when it all hit me, like what that moment, what that game meant to me. And that's incredible. I'll never forget my first cap.
No, I don't think you ever will. That's an incredible story. I remember watching it live, and I know a lot of people in the States were like rooting you on, and UCF fans were rooting you on from there. And now you look at this year. You've been back to the States since with the Brazilian national team. You played last year in the Tournament of Nations tournament, and then you're currently in the She Believes Cup. Up and even playing in Tampa against the United States. What has this been like to be back in the States a couple times to play, being a part of Team Brazil and back in the States?
It's fun because it doesn't matter how much time goes by. When I come back, I always have people reaching out to me, people who played with me, the coaches who coached me, and my UCF family always reaches out to me, and it's really cool to have that. UCF has always made me feel special, even though I was international. I wasn't from America. I wasn't from Florida. I barely spoke English when I got to UCF. So and from the first moment, and all of the almost 6 years that I spent at UCF, I always felt special. I always felt like I belonged there, and I always felt like they appreciated me for what I was, and that's really cool. You don't get that everywhere, and being back here and always having someone reach out to me and connect, and it's really cool because it makes me think about my years in college and makes me realize and be even more thankful for what they were. They, like I said, I'm very honest when I say it was for 6 of the best years of my life. So being here brings that all back, and that's the best part of it.
Do you remember what made you decide to come to the States in UCF? Because you were young. I mean, that's kind of I think you're 18 years old when you moved here to Orlando and go to UCF. What was it? I know, Coach, they were recruiting you overseas because they always recruited internationally. But take me through that process as you decided to come to UCF.
So I was in Brazil, and it's funny because a few months before, Kobe Hale was who saw me for the first time, and he was the one who was in Brazil, looking at players. And I remember a few months before Kobe was at my club team, I had quit soccer. And here's why. Not because I didn't love the sport or, in Brazil, we don't have sports in college. I mean, we do, but it's not like it is here. I mean, it's just for fun, So basically, it gets to a point that once you finish high school, you either have to go play, and now it's getting better. But I mean, back in the day, it wasn't a very good look for you to go play professional in Brazil, or you would quit, the sport, and you would focus on your studies. So I've always done well in school, and I liked studying, So when I was about 17, I said, it's time for me to just focus on my studies and, try to get into a really good college and go about life this way. But then I remember, like it was today, I was on vacation, and I called my club coach, and I said, look, I know I said I wouldn't be a part of the team anymore this year, but, I just really miss the girls. That club, Guarani, was a big part of my life. So I said, look, can I just come out for, practice sometimes? And I don't want to play the tournament. I don't want to play the games. I just want to, every now and then come out to practice and be with the girls and see you guys. And he said, yeah, you're always welcome. And and said, come out. That was like a Thursday, and he said, come out next Saturday. That's our next practice. So come out and come say hello to us. So believe it or not, that was the practice that Kobe went to. So after like 3 months without playing, and I just show up that day to see my friends and be on the beach and have some fun. And then Kobe's there, and it was amazing because he liked me. We got along well right away, and then he said, I'm interested in seeing more of you and talking to you and potentially offering you a scholarship to come to my university in America. And that was really cool. That just made me realize, what, like, if I think outside the box a little bit, I can continue my studies and I can continue to play soccer at a high level. So that's when it all started for me. And that was really cool because after Kobe said that, I was already excited about, doing those two things at once, studying and playing soccer. But then when I started doing some research and seeing what UCF really was, that was really cool. It was like, whoa, like this is a dream. And that's how it all started.
That's unbelievable. And you adjusted pretty well. Your freshman year, you were an All-American. You were the first UCF soccer player to be an All-American as a freshman since, someone named Michelle Akers, which is that's a pretty good part. Why were you able to adjust so well moving to the States and adjusted like you did playing with UCF? You ended up playing all 4 years. You started all 4 years, rewrote the record books, helped them win conference championships, get to the NCAA tournament throughout your entire career, including the Elite Eight run in 2011. Have you had a chance to reflect on your career and how successful it was and how you were able to adjust in the States?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was a lot of factors. I mean, but as I said, I keep talking about this, and I really mean it. Like, I think UCF gave me the right environment to do all of that. Like I always had so much support coming from every side. From an academic standpoint, like. It's not a joke when I say like my English wasn't good at all. Like I did well. I had to take the SAT and the TOEFL to get into the university, and I did that. And somehow like I did well, and I got the grades and stuff. But getting to the United States and going to class and listening to those professors talk so fast, I was like, woof, I'm so lost here. But I mean, I didn't feel lost at all because I had the support. I had the academic support. And then, like I said, in soccer, like the staff was amazing. And it always, like when I felt frustrated or when I felt like I wasn't doing well at something, like I always had a hint to help me. And people were so ready to help. And people just gave me so much support and love. I think playing well on the field and doing my best was the least that I could do, to thank everyone for everything I was receiving from them.
It's unbelievable. You were a four-time Conference USA champion. You were all region all 4 years. You were ranked as the number one UCF soccer player during their time in Conference USA. When you ended your career, you were ranked second in career saves, fourth in shutouts, sixth in goals average against. And the save that everybody still remembers was in Gainesville in that Sweet 16 matchup against North Carolina in penalty kicks. That photo still pops up there where you're stretched out there and make the save. One of the most significant saves in the history of the program as it got you to the Elite Eight. What did that run mean to you? And what do you remember about that run, getting to the Elite Eight, and that shootout against North Carolina to get to the Elite Eight?
That was so cool because it was in Gainesville, so we made the Gators be like UCF. We had so many fans there, and I remember when I made that save, and first I couldn't, for the following 30 seconds I couldn't breathe because the dog pile was so huge and I was underneath all of that. So at first I thought I was gonna die, and then And then after, like, I saw all of these videos of people jumping, like people that were on the stands, jumping on the field and running to get on the dog pile. And I was like, holy God, that was a huge moment for us. So special because, unfortunately, it wasn't at UCF, but it was close enough that we could make that place UCF. Like, we had all of our fans, and it was huge, and especially against a very traditional team, especially against UNC. So that was unbelievable. That was incredible, and I was so happy for Amanda as well. Playing against a former coach, and what that win meant to her. So that was very cool, very cool. That was one of the biggest moments. And like you said, you've been talking about like all those numbers, and I don't even know, the records and the numbers, but it's funny that I was an All-American as a freshman. I think, like I was the new kid, and, I was different because I'm 5'3", and I'm not the typical goalkeeper that you see on the field. And I think that caught people's attention. I was who's this goalkeeper who just got here, and she's a freshman, she's starting, and she's doing well. But I can't even tell you how much I improved over the years. When I left UCF, I was a totally different player from when I arrived. I mean, Big D she's the best goalkeeper coach I've had by far. No one even compares to her. Her attention to detail, her attention to the game, and all the specifics. So I improved a lot, during my 4 years at UCF, and I truly, I don't believe I would be where I am today if it wasn't for those 4 years, and if it wasn't for the knowledge that she gave me. So, and I say that, like, even now, like, I'm playing here in the States, and I played the first 2 games against England and Japan, and right after the game, I'm writing Big D and I'm writing Amanda, and I'm asking for their feedback. I'm asking, for their opinion, because, like I said, like, those 2 coaches, they're such, sorry about the word, but they're badasses. Like, they're the best. They're the best I've seen. So I'm just so lucky to have their support, even though, like, I graduated college almost 10 years ago.
That's totally great. What is it about Coach Big D and Coach Donna and then Amanda that really that stands out to you playing for them? Because 2 seasons ago, Amanda Cromwell at UCLA, they got to the College Cup here in Orlando. They got to play in the College Cup in her backyard in Orlando, and a lot of your former teammates and a lot of her former UCF players went to the College Cup supporting her, and she teared up. I asked her about that in the post match after the final against Stanford, and she got emotional about that, how that meant a lot to her. What is it about her that you all still to this day support her and playing for her? What was that like?
That's a good question. If you look around, it's not just me, right? Like, how many of her former players are still close to her and still keep in touch and still look up to her? I mean, Amanda is so special. I don't even think she knows, like, how special she is, and it's not like she's trying hard. She just is, like, she's authentic. She's who she is, whether you like it or not. And I think that's what drawn us to her, like, she's authentic. She knows her stuff. She has had so much experience with soccer. So, I mean, we believe in her knowledge and in the things that she does on the field. She knows how to win. I mean, look what she did with UCF. She was there for 15 years? I don't know the exact number, but I mean, she turned that program around. And I mean, you have to acknowledge that, like, when you have a coach that teaches the soccer, teaches things that are outside of soccer as well, and is authentic. Like, she wasn't trying to please anyone. She was just like people used to say back in the day, she was the real deal, you know. And with Big D is the same. I mean, Big D could relate to the players so well. And I remember, like, in Brazil, we never talked about mentality. You know, when I was 18, like, you know, we didn't talk about mentality. We didn't talk about leadership. We didn't talk about, you know, like, the mental part of the game and your emotions and all of that. And Big D started. I remember, I think it was my sophomore year or my junior year in college. She started the leadership council with us. And for me, that was like, whoa, look at this. Look at all of this information I'm getting and how this can help my game improve so much. This can help me be a totally different type of player. So I think after all, like, those two people, they're very real. Like, they are who they are. They're not trying to be like. They're not trying to please you. Like, they just do their thing. They know what they're doing. They care about you, and I think that makes all the difference.
Couple more things before we let you go. How are you able to follow UCF and UCLA? Because I know I'm talking to a lot of your four teammates. They follow both UCF and UCLA with Coach Cromwell, obviously, and then UCF. They've had success recently. A couple years ago, actually got to host in the NCAA tournament. They had a great goalie in themselves, in Vera Veras, who just graduated. A lot of comparisons between her and you. From afar, are you able to follow the two programs?
Yes, no, I am, and I. On social media, and like I said, I still talk to some people at UCF, and of course, like, because I coached at UCLA for 4 years, I feel like I know a little bit more about UCLA than right now. Like, I know about UCF. I think I need to connect a little bit more, but I know about the goalkeeper that you're talking about from Finland. She has been really huge for UCF as well, and for the success that they've had. So, yes, those are the two college programs that I still follow. And I mean, UCF is always gonna get my heart. You know, like, I hope that when I'm done playing, my goal is to come back to America and coach at the university level. And I hope one of my dream jobs is to be back at UCF as a coach. So, you know, I need to keep in touch, and I need to make sure they know how what UCF means to me, because, like I said over and over again in this interview, and I really mean this, UCF changed my life and for the best. So the least that I can do is support UCF and continue to follow them and wish them all the best. I want UCF to continue to grow.
Last thing, and you mentioned UCF, they just announced recently they're going to bring back the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. I wrote on Black and Gold Banneret about some of the people that should be considered to be in the Hall of Fame. You were at the top of the list when it came to women's soccer. It's not just because I'm talking to you. It's just because it's legit. Everybody that follow the program would be the first to agree with that. So we believe strongly you're going to get into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame at some point. It might be this year. It could be a couple years down the road, whenever it is. What would that mean to you if you got into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame whenever that happens?
Wow. Unbelievable. What a huge honor, because let me tell you, when I was at UCF, I was surrounded by really special people, really special players, not only women's soccer, but basketball, softball. So there were some really great athletes there, and, you know, being considered to join that group of elite people, elite athletes, I can't even start putting into words. I mean, when I read that article, I was like, whew, this is so cool. I really hope this happens, and that I could be back there and see the university again and share my thoughts with the people there, so I could really show them what UCF really means to me.
I agree, and I don't think it's a question of if. It's just a question of when you get inducted, because you certainly deserved it. Aline Reis, thank you so much for joining us under your busy schedule. I know it's a huge time for you playing, obviously, with Brazil as you're trying to get ready to maybe make the team and participate in the World Cup this summer in France, and then playing, obviously, professionally over there in Spain. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the memories you've done with UCF, and certainly, and you've made everybody proud. That follows UCF, and good luck, and we look forward to seeing you play more and staying in touch.
Thank you, Eric. This has been fun. Like, talking about UCF and my years there, this has been really fun. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you too for all you've done for UCF. I mean, you were also part of my career there, so thank you very much, and it has been really fun.
Yeah, I was just the annoying guy that asked you annoying questions after matches. That's okay.
No, it's even more impressive that you could understand what I was saying back then. So that's impressive.
Hey, listen, both of us were bilingual, so we're used to it. You know, we deal with what we do. You know, what are you going to do?
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Take care, bud.
Thank you. Have a good day.
That's great. Great. Thanks again to Aline Reis for joining us on a busy schedule. She's heading back there, getting ready for her Spanish league. And, boy, I got to give you credit, Jeff. I remember we did a Hall of Fame special, and you said she should be in the Hall of Fame sooner than later, maybe even this year. And whether she's in this year, we might find out at some point during the very near future whether she's in or not. What a class act. When you do a Mount Rushmore of women's soccer, I think Aline Reis has got to be right at that list, right?
Well, and I think especially not just, what she was able to do at UCF, but what she was also able to do after UCF. I think that's certainly got to play a part in it. I think for me, the thing about Aline that was so remarkable is, and this is not a knock at all. It might sound like it, but she's really short for a goalkeeper. She was one of the shorter players on the roster. Remember when she was at UCF, but was so talented and played her way up into the starting role at a very early point in her UCF career, and just never let it go. And it lends yourself not just to how athletic she is, and you see that every time she's out there, even now. But also just she has such command of the field, and she always did when she was at UCF. And now you see it where she's, directing traffic and telling, people like Marta where to go, and yeah. And she's always had that leadership quality. But it's one of those things where it's a leadership quality where, not just command of the field, but also her teammates just absolutely loved her at UCF. Yeah. Really, really loved her. And we loved covering her because she was so kind, and she just got it. So I personally, as someone who covered her for 2 years, I can't be happier for her, because she to see what she accomplished at UCF, and then to play in the Olympics, and now she's on the verge of playing in the World Cup representing Brazil. And to know that I covered her when she was, in her early 20s, and actually a late teen. She was 19 years old when I first came back to UCF to work in the video department. I mean, amazing.
And she still remembers that. I mean, you heard there at the end how she thanked me for covering her, even though she joked about her language there. But she even off the air, we were talking about you and the way you covered her, and very down to earth, low key, just an awesome person. And hopefully she's makes that World Cup. And credit to Coach Cromwell. I mean, I'm sure you were in the same. Remember, she was back even when she was playing with UCF. She was telling us off the air and on the air she should be on the Brazilian national team back then. And thankfully, she tried out and made an effort right before the Olympics and was able to make the team. And she was able to pull that off.
Yeah, and what a tremendous honor too to do that. I mean, this is Brazil we're talking about, man. I mean, this is not. Not to sneeze at any other school, at any other, national teams that are out there, but, they're up there. They're up there with the United States and with Japan and China and Germany, and to see not just, Aline, but now we're starting to see some other UCF players get some run on their respective national teams. I know UCF had a couple players on the German under-21 national team a couple years ago, and Stephanie Sanders for one was on there. I think they had one more on there. Forgive me for not remembering any names, but that shows you how far, how really embedded in the women's soccer international community UCF is. So, and Aline is a good indicator of that.
I would argue that post Michelle Akers era, Aline Reis is the face of UCF women's soccer.
Yeah, I mean, well, she's certainly up there. I think you could probably put a couple more names in there as well. Becca Thomas comes to mind.
Sure, but Reyes was the one that everybody remembers that save in the against North Carolina.
Yeah, one of the greatest plays.
Get them to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, one of the greatest plays ever, and I would put that up there with Carol Rodriguez's bicycle kick as maybe like the best UCF play that I personally have ever seen. I know that some of our friends who played on the soccer team from back in the day, like, Courtney Whidden, and even, I'm sure Coach Cromwell, would probably be like, hey, well, there were a few others that maybe you guys didn't see. But, those are some of the great moments that I think we should all remember. And that's what makes you, Hall of Fame material, right? So I hope that Aline does get in, if not this year, certainly sometime soon, because she deserves it.
Amen to that.
All right. So let's roll. Let's roll over to women's soccer. We just talked about women's soccer. Let's talk about women's basketball here. As we plow through some of the sports that are kind of winding down and then winding up at the same time. So they finished off their regular season this week. Got a couple of key wins. One against Tulane at home on Senior Day. And also then went on the road and finished out 2 days after the men's team beat Houston. They went to Houston and beat the Cougars themselves. Of course, the Houston women's team not quite as good as the men's team, but still for UCF to finish out the season on 4 consecutive wins and head into the American Athletic Conference Championship with a record of 24-5 overall, 13-3 in the American. They head to Uncasville, Connecticut and the Mohegan Sun Arena. That's the arena inside the casino, the Mohegan Sun Casino out there, which is actually closer to Providence than Hartford. But what a year for women's basketball. They finished with the most regular season wins in program history. The best season since they were capping off a stretch of seasons, the best 3 seasons consecutively since they've been in Division I, and they're not done yet. So as we look at what this team has been able to accomplish, obviously KK Wright's going to have some postseason awards heading her way as we get ready for the tournament starting this weekend. I believe it starts on Friday. But I want to put this season into perspective in terms of women's basketball, because we saw some, back when you and I were students, there's kind of this. Oh, I hear your background. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Are you all set? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. So back when we were students, we saw a couple UCF teams in the ASUN that were pretty good. I think one year under Gail Striegler, UCF was the regular season champion. But now, we're one day out from the women's basketball tournament for UCF, and the expectations are, I think, higher than ever. Now, I don't know, again, if they're going to beat UConn, but UCF does get the first round bye, which is always key, because you get that extra day off, and they will face the winner of Tulsa and Wichita State, teams who they've beaten before in the past. First game is going to be 6 p.m. That game is going to be Friday at 6 p.m. on ESPN3. That Tulsa Wichita State game, if you want to see what UCF is, who UCF is going to play. The Knights' first game as the 2 seed, 6 p.m. on Saturday in the quarterfinals. And then, assuming they get through that game, they would play the winner of number 3 seed Cincinnati against either Temple or Memphis. But putting this, this into perspective, what are the expectations, I think, for UCF heading into this tournament?
Well, I think it's get to the final.
Yeah.
They're at the 2 seed. The tricky matchup is potentially Cincinnati. Remember, you were there where they played earlier this year. The one regular season meeting came down to the last possession.
Yep.
that could certainly derail them. And I think the question is, as you look up Charlie Cream and his latest bracketology, is does UCF have to get to the final to really secure the at-large bid, or are they already in? And that's kind of the uncertainty. You would think they're already in with what they've done, but with the way the league is down this year, I think you feel better if you just got to the final, right? I mean, you just would feel a lot more comfortable come selection Monday night a couple of weeks from now.
Well, let me put it this way. They're 15th in the RPI, 15th with a 24-5 record, and 12-3 on the road, which is always kind of key. Yeah,
Where does Charlie have them in? Where does Charlie have them?
I gotta find that out. But go ahead.
I think to me it's about get to the final and then you're in. I don't think there's any questions at that point. You've done. I think even in the semifinals, if you lose in the semis, they're probably going to get in anyway. But you just, you never know with committees. I mean, you just never know, and you just rather just take care of business. But I think the expectation is to get to the final, and then you get national exposure probably against UConn. I mean,
by the way, Charlie has them going to Starkville. They would be a 10 seed facing. He has Central Michigan as the MAC champion as the 7 seed. Does
he still have them as the last 4 in?
No, he moved him. No, he moved them up.
That's good.
So they're not even listed in that.
That's good news. That's good news, and I'm happy to see. So I agree with you. I think they're in. And I would say this. Here's what I would say: don't lose the opening round game. Don't lose the opening round game, and I think they're in. But I think those are the expectations, and then I think the question is moving forward, as we'll get down the road, is can this team do something that no UCF team has done, which is win an NCAA tournament game? I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
That would be kind of unique, and I believe too this will be the first time that the program has made the NCAA tournament without winning the automatic bid, right?
Correct.
In theory. So. Not to suggest they could. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe UConn at some point is going to lose one of these conference tournament games, right? I mean, at some point. You think? Maybe.
I don't know. They're 100 and some and nothing, 100 and some and 0 in the American, including tournament games since the conference started in 2013. So.
But this might be the most vulnerable they've been in a while, right? Like, I mean, now I'm not suggesting anybody will take advantage of it, but I mean, Houston gave them a game on Senior Day a little bit.
Yes, but to what extent? I don't know if vulnerable is the right word. It's kind of like, are they susceptible? I mean, sure. I mean, I think anybody is on a given particular time. I was impressed with what. I think this is interesting here because I don't know what you saw from that UConn South Florida game, because I watched that game, the game that was
another game, right?
They
didn't really,
right? That game was tight until the fourth quarter, and South Florida ended up losing by 10. You kind of kept waiting for UConn to kind of pour it on at some point because Katie Lou Samuelson wasn't playing, and just South Florida just kind of turned it into like a ping pong match, and it was just weird seeing UConn kind of they had a rash of turnovers in that game.
Yep.
The thing is with that, and by the way, South Florida was really depleted, and I think they were also playing out of their skulls in that game too.
They slowed the game down. It was a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
Shortened the game, which is what you have to do. And I thought they did a very good job executing that. Obviously, Samuelson's health is in question. I would assume she'll be back for the conference tournament. But yeah, that's what my point is. I mean, USF is depleted, gave them a battle. Who's to say UCF couldn't, right?
Yeah. And it's just hard to say right now. I mean, if you're UCF and you get a shot, you win your 2 games and you get that shot at UConn, okay? And by the way, the problem with Katie Lou is that she has some back issues, some muscle spasms in her lower back that she's been suffering from, which is a real bummer because she is so fun to watch as a player. But that's one of those things where like you got to rest, man. You can't go full tilt, and it's also one of those injuries that like you're just. It never really goes away. It's always there. So, I mean, that's a big question mark, I think, for Gino Auriemma heading into this tournament. Now, is UConn still the overwhelming favorite? Of course they are. Anything less than that would be a phenomenal upset. But if you're going to get a shot at them, this might be your best opportunity if you're a team in the American. So,
correct. That said, I'm telling you right now, Cincinnati, if UCF plays Cincy in the semis, that will, as you know very well, watching that in person, that will not be an easy game.
Yeah, that's a tough game. And let's give some credit to Cincinnati, too, because they've been an upheaval. Auriemma himself was pretty vocal about, how they let go of their coach last year. They have a first-year head coach this year, and they have really been the surprise of the league. And it gave UCF all they could. I mean, it was a tight game down the stretch. I think that was the game where KK Wright hit the runner and then got the steal in the final seconds to seal it out. But yeah, let's give some credit to them. That could be a very good game if UCF does get through that game and they get a shot at UConn. You never know what's going to happen. Obviously, this is basically the championship. Should they all get there, would be a home game for Connecticut. Which is set for Monday at 7 p.m. on ESPN2. But yeah, I mean this could be anyone in the Americans' best shot at UConn since the last 5-6 years that we've started this league. So again, UCF's first game in the tournament will be Saturday at 6 p.m. on ESPN3. Assuming they get through that, they would play in the semifinals at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday on ESPNU. So keep an eye.
TV exposure there.
Yep.
I mean, opportunities there that again the women's has had this year that we've talked about and written about on Black and Gold Banneret. Also, the awards will come out, I believe, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I expect
right before the tournament starts. I expect, right?
Right, and hopefully, Coach Abe gets to be named Coach of the Year in the league. I think she's overdue. So we'll see if she gets it.
She is.
I mean, it's either going to be right. I mean, it's got to be her or Gino, I guess, in theory. So
well, you could make a case for the Cincinnati coach too, going 12-4 in the league in their first year.
You could. The counter I would have is UCF was picked 4th in the preseason in the conference, so
fair.
It's not like they were supposed to be second best team. So hopefully she gets it, and if she gets it, by the way, or UCF's SID Megan Herbeth would complete a trifecta. Women's soccer, Tiffany Sahadak was a Coach of the Year in the American 2 years ago. Megan was the SID in softball when Renee Lourdes Gillespie was Coach of the Year in the conference in 2015, and here with Abe in 2019. That's a trifecta right there, my friend.
Megan's the lucky charm, man. We should have her on the podcast. We might get like podcast of the year or something. I don't know. All right.
She'll probably turn it down.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame her in one bit. All right, so that's women's basketball. 4A, we'll see them on Saturday. Softball, Eric Lopez. Big weekend for them as they had the UCF Invitational. They won their first 3 games, beating Toledo, Dartmouth, and La Tech. Excuse me, beg your pardon. Yeah. And then facing number 1 Florida State in 2 consecutive games. And lost 2-1 in the first one, lost 9-3 in the second one before coming back. I thought this was key. Last night, Wednesday night, they beat another ACC opponent in Boston College. Obviously, you were doing play-by-play for all those games. Aaliyah White got the W. She went 6 1/3, gave up 1 earned run on 5 hits, walked 6, struck out 2. Pretty good outing for her. She'll probably tell you that, it wasn't the best, but especially with the 6 walks. But, that's an ACC team.
You can thank the ump in his small strike zone.
Oh, see, it's Eric throwing fireballs out here already. But, okay, so let me ask you this. 2 losses to number 1 Florida State. Coming back and beating Boston College 2 days later. What did we learn from that?
Well, I think we learned it's a resilient team. It's a team that put Florida State behind them. I mean, the Sunday game was a classic. It was a well-played game. It could have gone either way. UCF had chances to win that game. Aaliyah matched Megan King, who's the Women's College World Series hero for Florida State, pitch for pitch. I mean, you're talking about a Florida State team, Jeff, that's coming in ranked number 1 in the country in batting average, number 1 in the country in runs scored, number 1 in slugging percentage. I think they're number 2 in slugging percentage.
Mm-hmm.
they have it all from 1 to 9, and I thought Aaliyah did a great job in that game. The second game just got away from UCF a little bit there. Florida State made some adjustments against Vasquez and the youngsters, but they bounced back and beat a Boston College team that's a pesky team on a Wednesday. It's very easy to have a hangover from Florida State, and I thought Cassidy Brewer got them off to the great start with the 2-run homer. So I think they're in a good spot, 13-7. They're receiving votes in the polls, and that tells you how much respect they got based on how they played.
Right.
Going 9-3 in this homestand with 2 losses to the number 1 ranked team and defending national champions is nothing to be ashamed of. So now the thing we're going to learn is they're going to go to Clearwater, and they've got games that, quite honestly, they should win. They could win all those games. But will they be they got to stay consistent and a consistent high level, because we talked about this last year. What kept the team out of the tournament was some of those losses that you're like, ugh, you wish you hadn't lost those games. And I think Clearwater, they need to dominate and have a good success weekend on the road here now and show they can win away from home and build some rhythm that way, because they got an 8-game road trip now. Got 5 games in Clearwater, and then a big one at Florida next week. Can't get caught looking ahead, though. That's why this team, I'm curious to see how they come out in Clearwater. Don't get caught looking ahead to Florida, which is a big one, and then at Stetson to conclude the road trip. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this in-state road trip there. But, I think Aaliyah's pitching well. Offensively, there's some good, they're deep a little bit. They got some bats that are starting to come to life. It was good to see Brewer hit a home run. So we'll see how they do. But I thought it was a very good homestand, and I thought they represented themselves great. And I thought it was a great atmosphere on Sunday when they had the second largest crowd at 1161 on Sunday night. And Sunday, and then a Monday night, a rare Monday night. I think that crowd was a top 5, top 10 crowd of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good attended weekend for the sport and for the program.
Yeah, it's such a bummer that they couldn't get one of those two. That would have been really
Sure.
awesome too. But it's Florida State we're talking about. Let me ask you this question. You've talked before about how impressed you've been with Brianna Vasquez, who's found more or less that number 2 pitcher spot, which is something that has always been something we've always been looking for with this team. On the hitting side, who has been the real breakout surprise for you so far in the first 20 games?
That's a good one. That's an interesting question. I mean, Jasmine, as far as I don't know if it's a surprise, but has definitely much improved. Leads the team in RBIs. I mean, she's on pace to already surpass their hits and RBIs from last year, which she had last year. It's a total.
Yeah, she's got 19 runs batted in the first 20 games. Yeah. That's remarkable. She's slugging .406.
Yeah, she's been very much improved. Glover's been phenomenal. Glover's playing more to what her pre-injury was in 2017. So she's been tremendous there as well. I think Erin Emanuel's been a nice surprise with the bat. I know what she could do with the glove, but with the bat, she's been pretty good at the bottom of the order there. So, and I've been impressed with some of the bench players there. Alicia Tumberlin, who's caught 5 games, had 4 shutouts, has been deep productive with the bat. It's created some depth behind the plate. So what Coach Ball is able to do, for example, on Wednesday night, is able to move Brewer to the DP spot. And one of the things she likes to do is you kind of give a player a day off, but yet keep him in the lineup. So Brewer doesn't catch, but she's still in the lineup at DP. You see this a lot in Major League Baseball, and I think Coach Ball Malone has a similar philosophy on that. And that's why you see a lot of players getting playing time, because she wants to create rest and create kind of a depth there, and she's pretty much done that.
All right, so 13-7, heading out to Clearwater Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you're a Knight fan and you're in the Tampa area, you might want to head on over to that. USF is officially hosting that tournament. The opponents for the Knights, however, are Seton Hall and St. Joe's on Friday in the early afternoon. Chattanooga and Furman mid-afternoon Saturday, and then St. John's on Sunday at 11:15 in the morning. Any particular out of those 5 that we should keep a close eye on in terms of when the RPI comes out and all that?
I mean, Chattanooga has always been pesky. That's a pesky game, and St. John's is a Big East contender for softball. But I think this is one about UCF and about themselves and being focused and about playing to a high level and not playing to the level of the competition. I think that's something, I think Coach Ball Malone even would have liked them to play even a higher level, even on Wednesday, winning against Boston College. It's no secret. You look at last year, they had the wins to make the tournament What cost them in not making the NCAA tournament was losses to Princeton and UTSA because that hurt their RPI. Mm-hmm. And I think it's about being focused and win the games you're supposed to. And I think that's what we'll find out about this team. Keep in mind, Cassidy Brewer's the only player on this roster that has played in an NCAA tournament game in a regional.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Glover redshirted in 2016. That's it. So this team is still learning to play at a high level stakes. I mean, it's a young team from that standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see Vasquez get more innings. How about Vasquez getting the save in her first collegiate appearance with the bases loaded against Boston College? That was impressive and a positive there. So, we'll see how they come out this weekend and how locked in they come in and try to build, win some games in the neutral field. That's the beauty of it. You get some neutral wins. Those are important.
Yeah. This is a huge tournament. There's a ton of teams at this thing.
Yep.
Army, Central Connecticut, Central Michigan, Chattanooga, Colgate, Furman, UMass. A whole bunch of – Wisconsin's going to be there. Villanova. You go on and on here.
It's a well-run tournament.
Yeah.
Ken does a good job with that.
Where's it going to be exactly?
It's in Clearwater at Eddie C. Moore Stadium. Now, what South Florida does – some of their games will be played at Clearwater, then some of their games will be played on campus. But UCF's playing all their games at the Eddie C. Moore Stadium at Clearwater, which is where there's a lot of tournaments that are played there year-round. I mean, ESPN a couple of weeks ago had their major tournament there in that stadium. I was there. And that's where the U.S. tryouts every year take place. So it's a very solid stadium. There's about 8 fields there, so that's why you're able to get as many teams as you just mentioned, because there's 8 fields there, and you can get as many games in as you can. And a lot of teams like coming down to Florida and playing those tournaments. And for UCF, it's a great advantage because of the way the RPI works. You get credited for playing games in the neutral field, even though for them it's like a bus trip, but that's a neutral field game, so that counts more than, say, if you were to host your own tournament, if that makes sense. And that's why USF, by the way, does that. That's why they host the tournament in Clearwater, because for them, they get credited with a neutral field playing in Clearwater as opposed to on campus.
Yeah, and they now if you're thinking about heading down there, by the way, it's a block north of Gulf to Bay Boulevard, right after you get over the causeway, and over by it's actually not that far from. The Clearwater Threshers. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Real quick, want to wrap up tennis here real quick because right now UCF in women's tennis. Well, first of all, I want to talk about men's tennis, Eric Lopez, because that team is starting to heat up. They've won 6 matches in a row. They defeated Tulane 4-3 on Wednesday night. Tulane's ranked number 42 in the country. They beat Miami 4-0 on College Match Day, and they're getting this. And they have the stretch where they play number 36 Penn State, number 2 Wake Forest, and number 4 Virginia at home in the next week. Whew! This thing is starting to heat up for men's tennis, and they're getting hot at just the right time, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean I watched the Miami match on the Tennis Channel. They were. Very dominant win, and they're peaking at the right time. That's why I was not too concerned with the slow start, quote unquote, because they played a very tough schedule.
I was concerned, but I'm concerned all the time.
Yes, you are. But John knows what he's doing, and so they're peaking at the right time. They got a good schedule strength, and you're peaking right in time to get some conference matches. And before you know it, in a month from now, you got the conference tournament and try to get yourself back into the NCAA tournament. So, this is a good time to play. That was a good stretch for them to get those wins.
And by the way, if you're looking to head down to the USTA National Tennis Complex, this is the weekend and do it with that Friday at 6 p.m. Against Penn State. The Sunday match at noon against Wake. That's the number 2 team in the country. That's really going to
Are we doing that? Are we doing that this weekend?
I want to say now. I'm looking at. It's hard to say. It's hard to say for me right now, but that Tuesday against Virginia looks a lot of fun. And looking on later on that noon against Illinois on Friday, March the 22nd actually looks pretty good too. So I'm keeping that in my back pocket. We'll see we'll see what we can do from there. All right, and then women. All right, so they come off that big win against Florida, right? What do you do for follow up? They got Yale and they beat them 6-1. And now they're looking at a doubleheader this Friday against Tulane and Miami of Ohio. Then they got Penn on Sunday. That's a big game or a big matchup, and then they do some conference, they go back into conference against Southern Methodist on Wednesday. So, right now they're actually standing in the catbird seat, man. They are 10-2 overall. Any potential for a slip up here as they move forward, because it's one thing to beat Florida, right? But what do you do the rest of the way from there against, some of this other competition? I mean, it's always one thing to get up for Florida, but what do you do after that? I think that's going to be the key right here for UCF women's tennis as they head down the stretch with a couple of really good teams coming up on the slate, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, just keeping the play in the high level and then try to keep winning there. I mean, sure, they're going to drop one at some point, right? I mean, you're human, but you try to minimize that and you keep playing the high level, and hopefully the pollsters don't drop them in the polls and the rankings there.
They're not even in the top 25 in the ITA. How is this even possible?
I don't know. We can't blame the football committee for this, so I don't know who to blame for this. Maybe a computer. Maybe the computer.
I don't know, man. I like what do they have to do?
It's a great question. I don't have an answer on this one. I'll defer to them on that as far as the rankings. It's a little weird,
now,
but
right now UCF is 44th in the ITAs. So I mean that gives you an idea of where they stand roughly. But no, I there's nothing really you can do to control that, but keep winning. I mean, keep winning that. Keep beating the competition that's in front of you. They do have some a good stretch of conference matches coming up. Tulane, SMU, Wichita, Tulsa. They got South Florida in mid-April, of course, but let's not forget that they still have teams like FIU still on the slate before they get ready for conference. So you can roll through conference and get ready for whatever comes your way. Illinois, by the way, is probably their best matchup coming up on March the 24th because Illinois right now is 8th in the ITA. So that'll give you a good indication of where they stand on that. So we'll have to keep an eye on how they perform going forward from that. So but actually, no, I correct myself. They're 22. For some reason when I was looking at the thing, they're not 44th. They're 22nd. The men are 44th. I beg your pardon. I was looking at the I was looking at the wrong thing. But my point again about Illinois stands because Illinois is 20th. So that gives you at least a much better indicator. Wichita's not bad, 32nd. So there's a couple good chances to move up there. SMU's 54th. Got to win those matches though going forward. All right. Let's wrap this puppy up. What you got coming up, Eric Lopez? I know we did some Hall of Fame stuff on women's basketball this week since the Knights are heading to the conference tournament, and we had a couple really good nominees there as well. What else you got coming up?
Well, we got TV numbers I'm going to have. Got the numbers for the Houston game as well as college game day numbers for UCF in Houston. We're going to have numbers for the Cincinnati game. We're going to have numbers hopefully for the Temple game. I mean, so we're going to have a lot of TV numbers coming up on the site on the Banneret, and who knows, Jeffrey, some breaking news maybe. We hearing from sources we might hear soon about the Hall of Fame class for UCF.
Sources say.
So we might have who knows, we may have an emergency podcast to break that down, or so at least to have a recap of it. So that's we're looking forward to that, hopefully coming out soon. Who knows, by the time some of you are listening to this, it might even be out. So.
Right. Well, by the way, one little news note that we wanted to pass along. Congratulations to Danny White, who was named the NACDA. That's the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. The AD of the Year award. You know what? No surprises there. Danny White getting stuff done. He won it. He's actually not the only one who won it. He won it alongside Patrick Chun of Washington State, Jamie Pollard of Iowa State, and Deborah Yao at NC State. So congrats to Danny for all this. Well deserved. And we'll see if he gets. We'll see if what he's able to do in pulling in. Maybe, who knows? We hear about the television contract that's coming up. I know that the exclusive negotiating window ended with ESPN on the 28th. But of course, there are some other things that have to be, some other I's that have to be dotted and T's that have to be crossed. After that, they're not going to announce the deal right away because obviously all the schools have to go back to the ADs have to go back to their board of trustees and get the votes on that, and then the ADs have to vote. There's some other fine print that has to get that has to get handled and taken care of. But I know that's something that a lot of UCF fans have been working at. There have been some speculation that some stuff that came out from a Memphis Board of Trustees meeting, which ended up being essentially, according to them, entirely speculative. So a lot of people picked that up and ran with it. We didn't write up a story on that, but and there was a reason why. Is because I didn't think, and I'm pretty sure you probably thought the same thing when you saw that, I didn't think those numbers looked really solid. It was just very, very difficult to, verify and pin down that that's kind of what they were looking at. So fans aren't going to like us saying this. We're just going to have to wait and see for that. But if it comes down, you can rest assured we're going to be right on top of it, because I'm sure there's going to be some interesting things coming out of that TV contract with when it comes out. So make sure you follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter for all the latest. Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez, Elo. Follow Brian at Spokes_Murphy for all your latest with UCF Baseball, of course. Thanks to Brian for joining us from on campus. And thanks also to Aline Reis. Best of luck to Aline as Brazil gets ready for the upcoming World Cup. You can follow her on Twitter at Aline Reis GK. That's ALINEREISGK. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you again next week.